What if I told you the next billion people to come online won't need a cell tower, fiber optic cable, or even a local ISP? They will just need a clear view of the sky. That's not science fiction anymore. Satellite internet is no longer a backup plan. It's fast becoming the front line of global connectivity. While governments debate infrastructure and telecom giants fight over spectrum, a swarm of satellites is quietly redrawing the digital map of the world. And it's not just about access, it's about power, control, opportunity, and a brand new economy in orbit. Let's break it down. Most of the internet today travels through a maze of underground fiber, transoceanic cables, and terrestrial cell towers. That works fine in cities and wealthier areas. But for the rest of the world, these traditional networks hit a wall. Literally, mountains, jungles, deserts, and oceans don't care about your 5G rollout plan. Half the planet still lives without reliable broadband, not because demand is low, but because the infrastructure can't get there. That's where satellite internet changes the game. Old school satellite internet has been around for decades. You probably heard of it in rural setups or disaster zones. It was slow, expensive, and had a delay so bad you would get your friend's response before you finished your question. That's because it relied on geostationary satellites sitting more than 35,000 kilometers above Earth. The signal had to travel all the way there and back. Great coverage, terrible performance. But now, something very different is happening. The new generation of satellite internet systems operate in low Earth orbit, or LEO. That means satellites are zooming around the planet at about 500 to 2000 kilometers altitude. Much closer, much faster, much more responsive. This change in altitude reduces latency drastically. It's no longer click and wait, it's click and boom, you're there. Companies like SpaceX with Starlink, Amazon with Project Kuiper, and OneWeb are launching constellations. We are talking thousands of small satellites blanketing the planet in broadband. And they're not waiting for permissions from telecom regulators in every country. They are launching fast and making deals on the fly. This is the first time we are seeing a truly global network built from the sky down, not the ground up. You can be in Himalayas, the middle of the Pacific, or deep in the Amazon, and as long as you have got the gear, you are online. That opens the door to education, healthcare, banking, and business for communities previously cut off. It's not just remote villages either. Think oil rigs, ships, planes, refugee camps, and even military outposts. Now, here is the thing, speed and coverage are only the beginning. Satellite internet doesn't just connect people, it changes who owns that connection. In traditional models, local telecom companies control access, pricing, and data, but satellite networks operate differently. You don't need local permits in the same way. You don't need to strike deals with five layers of telecom bureaucracy. With a satellite dish and a sky full of layers, your ISP might be an American company even if you are in rural area. That has huge implications. National governments are suddenly realizing that connectivity, something they thought they controlled, might be slipping into the hands of foreign tech giants. That's why some countries are pushing back hard. They are demanding data localization. They are delaying licenses. They are launching their own satellites. It's not just about internet anymore. It's about sovereignty. But on the flip side, it also means liberation. In places where internet access is censored, restricted, or completely shut off, satellite internet can bypass those roadblocks. You don't need government-friendly telecom operator. You don't even need underground cables that can be cut. As long as the satellites are above you, you control from below weekends. That's both empowering and destabilizing, depending on who you ask. And the technology is advancing fast. Antennas are becoming smaller, cheaper, and smarter. Terminals are portable, sometimes solar powered, and even switch satellites in real time. That means seamless coverage even when you are moving. No towers, no wires, just sky. But this boom also raises questions. If space becomes our new internet backbone, who manages the traffic? What happens when thousands of satellites from different companies are all orbiting in crowded lanes? Space junk is already a growing concern. Collisions could wipe out connectivity. Regulatory frameworks are lagging behind, and countries are scrambling to keep up. Still, one thing is clear: satellite internet is no longer a backup option for emergencies. It's becoming plan A for a new kind of global internet. We're going to talk about what the shift really means, not just for unconnected, but for everyone who thought they were already online. Let's talk winners, and let's start with the most obvious group, the disconnected. For decades, people in rural areas of Africa, Asia, and Latin America have been promised the internet. Big speeches, big investments, but what they actually got was spotty 3G, expensive plans, and the infrastructure that rarely showed up. Now, with low Earth orbit satellites, that promise is finally reaching them, this time without the middleman. Imagine a village where teachers can stream lessons from global universities, farmers can access weather data and market prices, and kids can learn coding instead of walking 5 miles just to find a signal. These are not just hypotheticals, it's already happening. In places like Kenya and Peru, schools are connecting to satellites and jumping straight from chalkboards to virtual classrooms. It's leapfrogging in real time. Next, there is business. If you are a startup in Indonesia, Bolivia, or Central Nigeria, your internet speed could determine your entire business model. Before, if your town didn't have fiber, your dream died before your pitch deck was done. Now, you can run a remote first company from a mountaintop. You can join a Zoom call with Silicon Valley VCs without your face freezing. This isn't just internet access, it's economic access. Tourism, shipping, construction, energy, all of these industries are getting a boost. Off grid doesn't mean offline anymore. Remote work sites, offshore operations, expeditions, disaster zones, they all benefit from real time data, cloud access, and communication. Satellite internet is becoming the invisible thread that ties it all together. But here is where it gets interesting. The biggest winners aren't just the users, they are the builders. SpaceX Starlink isn't just providing internet, it's building a monopoly in the sky. Every satellite launch is a customer logged in. Every ground station is another layer of control. If your signal comes from space, your provider owns the sky. Governments, especially in smaller or developing nations, are in a tricky spot. On one hand, they want to connect their people. On the other, they are now dependent on a handful of private companies that don't operate under their jurisdiction. This is a new kind of digital dependency, one that can't be fixed with policy or local competition. The cables are gone, the towers are irrelevant. All that matters is who owns the sky. That's where national space programs come in. China is building its own Leo constellation, and they are not hiding the fact that it's a response to Starlink. Russia, too. The EU is considering its own version. Even India has entered the game with OneWeb partnerships and homegrown plans. It's not just about getting people online, it's about making sure your people don't get online through someone else. And what about surveillance? If your internet comes from space, it's still subject to monitoring. But who gets to monitor it? Can a foreign company seize your traffic? Can they cut you off? These are real concerns. In authoritarian regimes, satellite dishes are already seen as threats. In democracies, lawmakers are asking tough questions about data jurisdiction and control. There is also the privacy angle. Some of these satellite providers want to use AI to optimize traffic, detect threats, and even offer services based on location and behavior. That means analyzing your data. If there is no local ISP in between, there is no buffer. Everything goes straight to the satellite company. And when that company is also in charge of space based surveillance and AI analytics, things get blurry. Still, even with all those risks, the value is undeniable. In war zones like Ukraine, satellite internet kept the military and civilians connected when ground networks are bombed. Starlink played a central role in keeping communications alive. It showed the world that when fiber fails, orbit delivers. This has triggered a quiet shift in how militaries and emergency services think about communications. Satellite internet is now a strategic asset, not just a service, and that means it's being guarded, targeted, and even weaponized. In any future conflict, the first battle might not be on land or sea, it might be fought by jamming satellites or taking out space infrastructure. So we have to ask, ask, if the future of internet is in space, what kind of treaties do we need? What rights do people have to the sky? Can access be denied like visas? Can it be taxed, regulated, or revoked? For now, most of the answers are vague. Regulators are scrambling to understand what they are even regulating. Spectrum allocations, orbital slots, cross border service agreements, all of it is being written in real time. Meanwhile, the satellites keep launching and the coverage keeps growing. Here is the wild part. We're not just talking about a few extra satellites. SpaceX alone wants to launch 42,000. Amazon's Kuiper plans thousands more. We are building an internet mesh above our heads that could outnumber the cell towers on Earth. That means more redundancy, better coverage, and eventually maybe real competition between space based providers. For consumers, that could be a win, but only if access remains affordable, open, and protected. Which brings us to our final question. What does this all mean for you, the person who already has fast internet? The one who is not in a village, not on a ship, and not in a disaster zone? Why should you care? This isn't just about connecting the unconnected, this is about changing the way all of us experience the internet, from speed and privacy to geopolitics and who holds the switch. Let's start with the simple truth. Satellite internet isn't just reaching the edges of the digital world, it's reshaping the center. Even if you live in a city with blazing fast fiber, your experience is going to change. The structure of the internet is being written from above, and it's already affecting the speed, reliability, and security of the networks you use every day. Here is how. Today's internet mostly flows through centralized routes, undersea cables that land at a few key locations, routers controlled by major telcos, and cloud hubs concentrated in places like Virginia, Frankfurt, and Singapore. But as satellite constellations go up, they start creating alternative paths. If one route is jammed or blocked, data can go into space and come back down somewhere else. This makes the entire global network more resilient, less prone to censorship, less prone to physical sabotage. But that same flexibility makes the internet harder to govern. If someone in the US accesses a website hosted in Nigeria, but it's routed through three satellites and lands in Brazil before hitting a server in Iceland, who has jurisdiction? What laws apply when the data flies through vacuum instead of cable? The lines blur, the rules bend. And if that sounds abstract, think about streaming, cloud gaming, real time finance, high frequency trading. All of these rely on milliseconds. The ability to route data via satellite without latency could shift competitive advantage. It might even change where companies build data centers or how edge computing gets deployed. Let's zoom out again. There's a big shift happening. We're moving from a grounded internet, one where geography and infrastructure defined access, to an orbital internet, one where location matters less than visibility. If you can see the sky, you can get online. That flips the script. For example, when an authoritarian regime wants to shut down protests, they cut fiber, shut off mobile data, control ISPs. But with satellite terminals distributed quietly across a population, those tactics stop working. You can shut down the ground, but not the sky. And that's why this is so politically charged. Some governments now see satellite internet as a threat to national control. Others see it as their ticket to leapfrog digital development. There is no consensus, only scramble. Now, let's bring it back to companies. Big tech firms aren't just building networks, they're building empires. Starlink is vertically integrated. They build the rockets, they launch satellites, they manage the network, they sell the terminals. There is no third party. That level of control is unheard of in traditional telecom, and it's profitable. That don't just sell service, they sell orbit. Amazon's Kuiper will likely be deeply linked to AWS. That means cloud computing will follow the satellite trail. The internet isn't just expanding, it's aligning itself with the tech giants who already control your data, your storage, your services. Even telecom companies are feeling the pressure. They are used to owning infrastructure, laying cables, charging rent. But when the infrastructure is in space and the customer talks directly to the sky, what's left for the telecom to do? Some are pivoting, partnering, others are fighting back with the legal challenges or pushing for satellite operators to follow the same regulations they do. But here is where things really hit home. As satellite internet spreads, we may even reach a point where internet access becomes more like a utility and less like a privilege. That sounds good until you realize how many interests don't want that to happen. Governments want control, corporations want profit, but people want connection. So the big question becomes, who gets to write the rules for the sky? Space law is vague. Most of it was written decades ago when the idea of internet constellations didn't exist. The Outer Space Treaty says space is the province of all mankind. But what does that mean when a private company owns half of low Earth orbit? If satellites block each other, if collisions happen, if countries start launching counter satellites to disable networks, who's in charge? This is the wild west of connectivity. It's already happening. Satellites are launching faster than regulations can catch them. Frequency bands are getting crowded. Some satellites have nearly collided. Debris is rising, and yet the expansion continues. Now, let's talk economics. As more companies enter the space race, the cost of satellite internet is dropping. Starlink's dish was once $500. Now it's closer to $200. Data plans are becoming more competitive, and with the scale, these prices will fall further. That's why even urban users might opt for satellite, especially in areas where traditional ISPs are overpriced or monopolistic. Imagine a future where your internet bill doesn't come from a local telecom, but from a space network offering faster speeds, global roaming, or encrypted routing. It's like your mobile plan, but for the entire internet. But that comes with a trade off. If the infrastructure is controlled by a few private actors in a few countries, global connectivity becomes a geopolitical tool, one that can be turned on or off, one that might favor allies and cut off adversaries, one that can shape digital economies with orbital access. We have already seen countries talking about banning Starlink or building firewalls against satellite based traffic. That's the next frontier. Not just internet censorship, but orbital censorship. So, what should you take away from all this? First, the internet is no longer tied to the ground. We are entering a sky first era, and it changes who is connected, how fast, and who controls it. Second, the same companies that already dominate your digital life are extending that power into orbit, and they're not waiting for permission. Third, this isn't just about remote villages or remote islands, it's about all of us. The shape of the internet is shifting. If we want it to remain open, fair, and accessible, we have to start caring about what's happening in the sky. Satellite internet isn't just about the future of connectivity, it's about the future of freedom, control, and who gets to write the digital rules of the planet. And it's happening right now, above you, as you watch this video. Thanks for watching.